I'm really pleased that we've kicked off our speaker series, and that we've got one of our very own members, Will, who's going to talk to us with a identity hat about the future of talent identity provenance automation. Will, I'm going to leave it at that. You can introduce yourself and then get on with the talk, which I'm really keen to hear. We've got about 30 minutes with Q&A and a bit of flexibility about the Q&A. So, Will, do you want me to stop sharing and you to take over?
Very good. Can do. Thanks, Chad. So hi, Will Kreth, CEO of Hand Human Digital. I have been involved with the Metaverse Standard Forum since the beginning, I think, of last July of 22, when things kicked off. And I reached out to Christine Perret and started to connect and engage with the Standards Register group and the Oversight Committee, and also now with the PCI group as well, too. And so want to catch folks up on some announcements and things we've been doing, and also where we come from and what we're about. So let's see here. I gotta pull my keynote back up because it went away when we did the switch there. Can everyone see this screen? The purplish screen?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. So I was just over at the International Broadcasting Convention Conference in Amsterdam, the annual trade show, convention, thought leadership opportunity for the media business, the film and television business, the broadcasting business. And we participated, my company, in a couple of different accelerators, and we'll talk about that a little later, but had a chance to present at the Media Entertainment Services Alliance, the MESA automation conference within a conference at the W Hotel in downtown Amsterdam, this presentation you're about to see today. So identity force is what we call it. We want to talk about unique identifiers and standards. We are the Hand Human Digital is a talent identifier under the Digital Object Identifier Foundation. We are a registration agency. Now, what is that? We talk about identifiers in business, and we talk about all the way back to the book identifier from ISBN, or whether it's the GTIN number behind every GS1 driven barcode around the world, or whether it's UPC EAN numbers, or whether it's you couldn't have Spotify without an ISRC code. For music, especially as it moved from physical to digital and to streaming and to the cloud. And I used to be the executive director from 2017 to 2019 of the Entertainment Identifier Registration Agency. Itself they are also a DOI registration agency. And we'll talk a little bit more about where they come from and what they're about here in just a second, but they identify objects in the form of film and television titles, movies, TV series, seasons, and episodes. And they're essentially the barcode for the film and TV industry, providing unique persistent identification for media assets, audiovisual assets. And then also leading up to where Hand is in 2023, we in January became a registration agency. We'll talk a little bit about that. What does that mean? So the DOI Foundation is about objects. It's not about the identifier itself, is what's digital. The object can be physical or digital. They've been around since 97. They were incorporated in 97. They went into production into their registration authority business in 98. They are about the persistence of unique identification for objects, as I mentioned, digital or physical. Resolution is the magic thing with the DOI Foundation. Just like DNS and ICANN allows you DNS name lookup resolution service, the DOI Foundation provides resolution for scientific papers, journal articles, with the British Standards Institute research materials, with the European sample database, biodiversity samples of biological life on Earth, and with the ITER film and television titles. So, but billions of IDs in use today, and they average 1.3 billion resolutions per month. Not bad. We are one of 12 agencies in the world. A week ago in Leiden, the Netherlands, we had a chance to get together for our annual conference with folks from Taipei, Beijing, Tokyo, Milan, the UK, Germany, and the US. And it was great to see all the folks and the faces showing up for that event. We are built on the same, the DOI registration system, which is based on the CNRI handle system. If you go to handle.net, you can look it up. The IDER organization just won a Emmy, and that'll be awarded next month in Hollywood in October. Well, actually, we're days away from October, and the creators of that standard are Raymond Drury and Jim Hellman, and they're going to be a part of a award ceremony. We announced at the event in Amsterdam that we have beta partners from the virtual and the real world in the form of Wild Capture is a volumetric digital human creation shop represented by United Talent Agency in Hollywood. ScanTruck also does full body scanning. You know, it's a lot of talk about markerless motion capture, and hey, you can use an iPhone to do 3D scanning and mocap of humans. And yes, you can do that, but you cannot yet do it at the fidelity of a dedicated facility or a dedicated site where you can use, in some instances with ScanTruck, hundreds of cameras to capture millions of pixels of a real person for their digital double, for their digital twin. Fabric Data is a major partner with the film and TV industry on title metadata from rights management, from the instantiation of a deal memo and the creation of a new project in Hollywood or for the film and television industry, all the way through the supply chain to distribution and play out on smart TV, smart devices, or theatrical. Opus Data does the bankability index and the numbers in Hollywood. They are like a big data analytics group providing performance data for the industry. And lastly, MetaRex is a standards fostering organization working on production level metadata fidelity in the production process, whether it's a live set or a volumetric stage where media is produced and captured. You know, so many programs and shows during the pandemic moved to virtual backdrops, virtual production in the cloud, sets that were not the real world, but were actually sound stages with incredibly high resolution screens on the floor, wall, and ceilings around the talent in their performances. Our beta program kicking off this October, and we're really grateful for the folks who joined us. And more will be joining when our invitation is still open for additional partners to join the program. But what does that mean? So in just a little digression, but it's all connected. Wall Street Journal, Patrick Coffey did a piece about celebrities using AI to take control of their images. Here's me back to the digital twin story. What you see here is the supermodel Eva Herzegovina, who has done a 3D scan of herself to live on in perpetuity and be forever young and ageless and beautiful for purposes of her name, image, and likeness rights being licensed to third parties who may want to use her in digital environments, virtual worlds. We got a nice shout out in that article as being a entity creating a so-called talent ID, but trying to do it the right way through the standards-based process. And there are a few companies that are announcing that they are providing digital vaults and encrypted worlds for Hollywood A-listers and celebrity talent, but they are not going through the standards process. And we are indeed in the standards process, as the DOI is an ISO standard itself. So we say both is better. What does that mean? Both the human and the digital. When we named this company Human and Digital, Human and Digital, we wanted to convey and to have the connotation of the essence of human creativity is best expressed in when for the digital selves, for digital twins, it's best that they're both coupled together in that chain of custody and the relationship between the magical essence of human creativity and talent, and also if they want to have their digital self as their likeness and performing and appearing and participating in virtual worlds. We see it already now with the avatars. So the ABBA Voyage project in London was a $175 million investment for their backers that has now yielded 150 in 1 year. and almost paid back their investment on the ABBA Voyage performance. It is going to be syndicated to Las Vegas, Singapore, Tokyo, and New York, according to news reports. And they're making about $2 million a week in sales. So digital talent makes real money in the real world, is the takeaway here. And for Agnetha, Benny Bjorn, and Anna Fried. But we say both is better because in the game world, we see this already with virtual talent, whether it's Steph Curry or whether it's Idris Elba or whether it's the coach John Madden. Biggie Smalls appeared in the Horizon World MetaQuest Pro event 1 year ago, nearly a year ago in December, that was written up in MIT Journal by a reporter who said, this is amazing because the family of the late Christopher Wallace, aka Biggie Smalls, licensed his photos, image, name, image, likeness rights to Meta and their partners who developed the digital twin of Biggie for a virtual world performance. And evidently, as he unfortunately passed as a young man, he didn't perform a lot in his life, his brief life, and it would give a chance for fans to see a simulation of Biggie, his digital twin, performing. But whether it was Ariana Grande and Fortnite during the pandemic, and Travis Scott as well, we know that digital talent makes real money. And so Hand Central is the database we built this summer over about 10 to 12 weeks with a team in the US and India to develop a registry database for our customers, our beta partners of legal talent, virtual talent, and fictional talent. And in this example, Tom Hanks is, you see the kind of the taxonomy and the relationship of the ontology of the legal, the virtual, and the fictional. He will have an instantiation of an abstract virtual talent ID in our world. We did an example with IWC of the late, great Maria Callas, the opera singer legend La Divina, for a accelerator project where from the Rai Italian television took from their archives 2D footage and then create a synthetic version of Maria Callas for a performance in a real, like, La Scala type opera theater. And that was projected onto a massive stage at the IBC Rai Convention Center for folks to see kind of a reanimation of Maria Callas, and also using original recordings of her voice, but also then using from her audio interviews in the past, a new interview was created using a well-known Italian talk show host, and her voice was sent through Respeecher, so that her voice likeness was lent to the interview that was taking place. And further to that, that interview was signed by a British sign language expert, Matt Kirby here, who is a kind of bit of a rock star in the sign language world. And so he has a set of citations and notability and provenance attached to who he is as a very popular sign language interpreter for the deaf community in the UK. And then his synthetic human was the instance there who was performing there in the window, typically as a sign language professional, doing the signing with his gestural knowledge, his haptics and behavioral, and his physiognomy not extracted, but remapped in a way and lent and licensed to his synthetic version, his digital twin. And he had a chance to speak on stage signing through an interpreter, talking about what does this mean for the deaf community? Also, what does it mean for the sign language community of professionals who are a shortage? It's such a classic supply and demand story. There's a limited number of sign language professionals around the world, and one could imagine they've always wished they could clone themselves to make additional money based on the fact that there's not enough of them to go around. And also, the deaf community has their different favorites, like, oh, Matt Kirby's my favorite sign language interpreter, someone might say. And whenever Matt was around, he's in limited supply. So he's curious and interested about the world of potential performance rights and the licensing of his abilities, not just his 3D scan self, but his way his eyebrow moves, and the way his shoulders move, and the way his gestures work, and the way he signs are learnable, machine learnable things that AI will help with to bring into a potential new revenue source for him, that maybe while he's sleeping, his digital twin is making money for him on a BBC program doing the sign language interpretation, because he can't be in everywhere at once. And there's also a limited number of professionals doing that. We also did a accelerator project with mixed martial artists. You see Alfie Jones here. His legal human and his synthetic human were given talent ID labels based on the credits and the provenance of his linked data that's attestable. Because what's different about talent versus user identity, because we talk a lot about, the world talks a lot about, and the metaverse community talks a lot about user ID and portability, and can I move my avatar from this world to that world to that world? That's great. Talent identity is different. We are not user identity. We're based on the concept of what we call citation-backed notability, and that is that you have to have credits. You have to have citations and linked data about who you are and what you've done to create a kind of a corpus or body of work to say you're talented, not because you say so, but because the meritocracy of the demonstrable proof that attests to your authenticity is available to the world, and we can provide that those linked attributions, that chain of custody, that provenance automation. We did this also for Cassie and David, her husband, who are also mixed martial artists. But rolling back to like why hand and why now, to provide a standard-based, freely resolvable, unique identifier for legal and licensed virtual talent is on the rise, and there's great interest in the industry and from both the performing arts industry and the sports leagues and federation industry because of the value in the supply chain. There's a saying that goes something like this: you cannot automate properly what you can't identify at scale. And persistent unique identification based on resolvable IDs makes a ton of sense, and it's time for it to happen. And when I was at ITER, we were approached in 2018 by CAA, one of the world's largest talent agencies. They said, we've been studying this problem. We'd like to do what you guys do for film and TV content identification, but for above the line credits in Hollywood, for the writers, directors, actors, producers on a film, and to be able to have unique identification for them, much as you do for film and TV titles. We love the idea. The board, we took it to the board. We expressed this desire of one of the world's largest talent agencies to create a unique identifier for talent. And we just didn't have the capital in the bank to do so because we were a trade association, a nonprofit. And then the pandemic came along and people changed jobs and the talent identifier kind of faded away. But then in 21, I stuck my neck out there and said, hey, to my colleagues in the industry, did anyone ever do the talent ID thing? And the answer was no. The second follow-up was, do we still need the talent identifier? And the answer was yes, we can still use that. And so that set me on the path to creating HAND. That's usually the story I open the conversation with, but you're getting it in the latter third of the story. So a SMPTE fellow by the name of Bruce Devlin, who is a former emeritus VP of standards for SMPTE, is an ally and a friend of HAND. He's also the head of Metarex Media. And he explains it this way, that in our world, in the media world, in the production stage of a project, the talent could be a legal person. It could be their licensed digital avatar in the film or the program. It could also be a stunt double. And to know who is in every shot, whether it's their elbow or their nose, or whether it's a version of such that's licensed, or it's the provenance is detectable, is a valuable thing in the early stage fidelity of metadata as it travels from creation, ideation and creation, all the way through editing, production, enhancement, and then distribution. And then eventually archiving for archival purposes from the archivist community. So we thanked our beta partners again, and we then said, here's where you can find us, and about our announcement as well too. So happy to take questions and to hear what folks think about what they now have learned about HAND.
Thank you very much, Will. That was great. While people are thinking about their questions, I'm going to use the chair's privilege to ask 2, which hopefully will become the kind of the standard sort of format that we use with everyone. First off, and sorry, these are very group questions in some ways. From where you are standing right firmly in the identity bit of PCI, what are the privacy and cybersecurity issues that you think about? So that's my question one, asking you to think about the other sides of the Venn diagram. And then also a kind of, hopefully an interesting question, but if there are 3 terms from where your area that should go in the glossary.
Mm-hmm.
So for all of you that don't know, the Metaverse Standards Forum has and is developing a glossary of terms that we're all meant to be contributing to help people navigate through this. So I was just wondering, what are the 3 essential terms that we should be submitting to the glossary, in your opinion, that come from your space? And why is that?
Yeah, so I want to thank you for that question. So I want to lead off by saying we will be writing up a use case, because now as the Metaverse Standards Forum has shifted toward the instantiation and documentation of use cases, we want to be one of those use cases around talent identity and the provenance automation and chain of custody and the traceability and that we think the hand talent ID provides. Secondly, it's important to mention and to be super clear about this, that we are a public identifier. We are not an end-to-end solution. We're not a biometric solution. I'm going to speak at a conference in DC, the Identity Week conference, thanks to Alex Crabb and the PR team for MSF, who connected me with the Identity Week folks who are very deeply involved in like Homeland Security and government like travel and airport security and biometric methods of identity attestation. We are a public identifier, not based on those methods by design and intent, but based on a corpus of citable linked data semantic relationships to a vectors of attribution, vectors of talent attribution that are traceable and linkable, and then thus can create a set of confidence about the true identity of an individual and also their body of work. What have they done? So we've identified 7 different indices of what I call critical metrics of what makes talent notable under our citation-backed notability model. But we fully intend to work with partners who may want 2-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication, so that we're just a piece of the puzzle as the public identifier, and then maybe a private identifier on a multi-party or 1 or 2-party transaction that over a network or a smart contract or a blockchain ledger, we would be a piece of first-class identification metadata to provide linked attribution and resolvability of the public identifier in this instance of the legal or the virtual or the fictional character. Okay, so there's that. So we fully anticipate we'll be working with partners in the watermarking space and in the ID registers, but what we stay clear of and we stay away from some, maybe many or most privacy or cybersecurity questions is that we don't track we don't track biometric information or personally identifiable information. And this is the other key point too. When CAA, the talent agency, did their research in Hollywood and the roundtable talks between 17 and 18 with the industry, talking to payment processors, talent agencies, studios, networks, players in the industry who wanted to see something better than what? Than government issued identifiers like the US Social Security number. They found that the US Social Security number was often used at the last minute to get talent paid in instances where it was not treated with the most governance and best housekeeping, as you might imagine. And that comes down to basically this. Talent agencies and managers would send unencrypted Social Security numbers in emails and unencrypted Social Security numbers and unencrypted emails between themselves and the payment processors and there are about half a dozen in Hollywood. There's casting crews, Exactuals, Extreme Reach, the Teams company, who then would have that information for them to either wire money to that individual's account or cut a check for someone. And they wanted to drive government-issued identifiers out of the value chain, out of the supply chain, and to have a proxy identifier that was not based on something that could expose them to litigation or have expose them to liability for identity theft. If identity theft happened, and this is most recently as of January 1st of this year, California Privacy Rights Act makes individuals and companies who are responsible or for bad data governance management of allowing a name of an individual and a government issued social to be leaked or hacked. The hackers may get away with it and steal someone's identity, but if the law enforcement teams can find that it was actually that firm where that was hacked and breached, the data breach, they're now criminally liable, and the individual can sue them, has rights for redress and damages. Okay. That's new as of January of this year. So the urgency, just like CPRA and GDPR, the rights around protecting sensitive information that is only should be on a need-to-know basis between you and your tax consultant and your banking institution and other people who should have it for tax and government purposes, as opposed to being exposed inadvertently or casually or sloppily in an unencrypted email between a management company, a payment processor. That's one of the things that CAA was looking to drive out of the value chain and to find a way to strengthen and make more resilient in the transactions happening in the payment side of business.
And Will, those three words or phrases, I noticed you said synthetic human. That feels like it should be in the glossary.
It could be that, and it was not my nom de guerre, nom de plume, or the appellation. That was the name of the accelerator project given by the people who proposed it in the team from Rai Italian Television, Roberto from Rai Italian Television, Iasello. That was what he called it. And I tend to think of like virtual human, a digital twin, is a little more maybe in the vernacular, but synthetic human is the name they gave it, and that's the project name. But for glossary coverage, if synthetic human is not there and should be, I think then I'm all for it.
Okay, well, let's make sure it gets in there. Are there any questions out there? Come on, guys. Let's see some questions, because this is and while again, I don't want to take all your oxygen, so you can please put your hands up. But if there is a space, I'll ask another one. Can you? Oh, Daria.
Daria's
excellent. End of my voice. Daria, go ahead.
Hi. Yes, I just wanted to ask for some examples of these critical citation-backed data sets that I'm sorry if you've covered it in the first few minutes of your presentation, but perhaps you could just expand more on that. You spoke quite quickly about this, and it's a new subject, and it might be good to go into it in a little bit more depth so that we understand specifically what is being spoken about.
Yeah. So the what I call the attestations of authenticity of the talent. When you saw Tom Hanks, or you take someone like Madonna, or like iconic talents that are super well identified in this world, when you peruse Wikidata, you will find that they will have nearly 200 or more unique identifiers in databases around the world. That could be the Norwegian Film Library, that could be Allociné in France, that could be the Library of Congress, that could be IMDb, of course, that could be multiple places where a unique identifier has already been created for that individual, and like VIAF in France, or and those are all quantitatively measurable. And so we set out to say, what is the minimum viable attestation in that particular indice? And that's one of 7 different areas, unique identifiers. And we are treating this as a hierarchical thing, because there's a certain gravitas to the notion that if the Norwegian Film Library thinks that Tom Hanks needs to be to get a unique identifier in it. It gives you a sense of credibility that that individual is not going anywhere, and that a government issued or a government body or a archivist community has decided that they need to be in their database, and in the database, thus they need to have a unique ID. Okay, so that persistent unique ID exists in multiple places, but the closest thing to a aggregation and roll up of unique identification at a global scale is Wikidata. Absolutely. And often there's a Wikidata identifier, but Wikidata is not built to the business requirements of Hollywood or the sports federations and leagues. And that's where we took our marching orders, that what did the industry ask for in 17 and 18, and what do they still need now, especially as talent moves from the real world into the virtual world. So unique identifiers are top of the list of things that we think are kind of immutable or demonstrably true elements of kind of a global meritocracy, that the sense of like someone has attained a level of some notability, then they're going to be instantiated and forever labeled with that identifier in that database in some country, in many cases, in many countries. Hope that helped.
Yeah, thank you.
That's kind of our heuristic. That's kind of our rule of thumb. That if they can prove, and this doesn't work. This doesn't apply to like a private individual. We're dealing only in public figures. Different legal constraints. We're not dealing with private individuals, and if it's someone who's a TikToker with 300 followers and a mother who manages their career wants to get a hand ID, that's going to take some time. They perhaps will someday, but we start as a business to business company, and our revenue model is a SaaS based API and web UI. So as a subscription model, that's where we come in to say, hey, if Disney wants to bring new characters into our database, we welcome that conversation about their instantiation, the fictional or the real.
Well, I've got one last question, unless somebody else does, which is about how do you imagine these synthetic humans interacting and being in the metaverse? Because it's more than just an image, it's more than just a voice. They have to be bots. They have to behave, and come to life. And of course, celebrities have a way of carrying themselves and a way of interacting. The talent does. What are the steps between the point now where they're registered and then becoming actually kind of functioning objects that one interacts with?
I think that's going to be part of the creative magic of places like Digital Domain and, as I mentioned, Wild Capture, or other companies that are creating synthetic or virtual digital twins of real people. Very important to say is that our three-part ontology of the legal person, their virtual instance, is a parent-child relationship, is linked. We don't create untethered avatars of synthetic creatures, right? Or identification for them. Because let's take, how many of you are familiar with Little Michaela? So if you check out, if you search for Little Michaela on Instagram or on just a Google search, what you reveal is a virtual influencer. Little Michaela is a fictional character, very important to say, not based on a real person, maybe a synthesis of teenage styles and fashion, but she is a synthetic character who is both still and animated and endorses products on Instagram today and makes money for a corporation called Brode, B-R-O-D, based in Santa Monica, California. In our database, we would have Little Michaela as a fictional character, and we would then, the Provenance story would be like ownership, first created, the date she's first created, country of origin, her legal name, as much as we can derive that, but also the Provenance story of like creators Broad Corporation, Santa Monica, California, USA. So we have and then further to that, we might have a Dun & Bradstreet number for Broad. We might have like some to identify that, to attest to the fact that they're a real company, and a licensed individual company that pays taxes in this country, and have a chain of custody back to the rights holders, because they are the rights holders of that fictional character, monetizing her look and her words and when she appears with real celebrities and doing selfies and endorsing products and things like that as a virtual idol, if you will, that there's a clean line between her fictionality, her fictional nature, and also and what her owners are, and also the individuals who would be legal persons appearing in the same shot with her.
Okay, well, we've got excellent. Sanjay, go for it.
So I have a question here. The question is like, one is like, preserving the rights of the people whose synthetic humans are being used and things like that. How do you, how is it like, me, I'm not getting spoofed into interacting with Tom Hanks when it is something else? So how does the rest of the world like figure out like, these avatars are not used in nefarious ways?
That's a great question. So we are really on the side of identification of the talent, not on detection of deepfakes themselves. But could someone use our technology in a investigation to see if there's a watermark with our identifier in it? Yes, they could. We're not in the detection, remediation, enforcement business. We believe that under reasonable and non-discriminatory licensing terms, we will license our identifiers to the world and hopefully achieve that the coveted network effect of ubiquity, so that we become a part of the currency in transactions through our free resolvability. But when it comes to if someone says, how do I put a cease and desist message on that person using an unlicensed use of me, that's up to the parties of record, be it their management company or their talent agency or they themselves with their legal team. We are a piece of the puzzle again and again. I mentioned that as a public identifier, we're here to add value to the attribution story, the chain of custody story, but we're not designed for, we're not a watermarking company. So we
Will,
could be used.
I think the question, and Sanjay, tell me if I'm wrong. It's if there's a come meet Tom Hanks in the plaza, and it's your Tom Hanks authenticated as Tom Hanks, how do people know it's not actually Tom Hanks? Is that your question, Sanjay?
It's all these things, right?
Yeah.
Because like I'm living a world wherein like we are in a metaverse, right? And we come across Tom Hanks. Now, is it really Tom Hanks, or is it a synthetic human?
Is it a fake Tom Hanks or a Will Tom Hanks?
No, again, I think it's important to bring this up here.
Or somebody impersonating altogether. Like there are three Tom Hanks possible. One is the real one. One is the one from the synthetic human who has been fully, authorized, and another one is somebody else, like using AI generating Tom Hanks, right? So in this world, how do I know that I'm interacting with which one I'm interacting with?
So, as I said before, we're not about detection. We're about upstream identification and provenance automation. So that in real business transactions, you want to know not just to know your customer. I've got MasterCard here on the call, KYC, know your talent, KYT. And so to be embedded as a hand ID in a watermark or in a field, in a transport stream, we're talking to people who provide transport streams, looking to have authenticated IDs for talent in streaming video. We are a trusted neutral third party to provide linked data attribution and authenticity verification. But we're not there to be at the distribution endpoint, giving you what can you tell which one is real? That's not a use case for a problem we're out to solve.
Okay.
So
You have to get it right upstream, Sanjay. You have to work with the content creators and the production and the distribution companies to provide, like I said, that provenance automation and chain of custody story early in the life cycle of the work. If there will be, and let's not kid ourselves, deep fakes, nefarious uses of or just bad actors using AI for purposes that are either unlicensed or not legal. Let's just be honest about it. But so that's not our thing to solve at the distribution endpoint. It's about providing better quality attribution at the point of origin, and then working with trusted partners, and then providing that in the, whether it's a closed network or whether it's a distribution transport stream, a set of linked data to attest to the authenticity of the talent.
Okay, fair enough. Like, at least the point is, like, it's a pipeline of a process. At least you are saying that there's one node in that wherein you are focused at. And the thing is,
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And we look forward to working with companies who provide the additional pieces of the puzzle around, hashed or encrypted information to provide multi-factor authentication. Companies that work with, as I mentioned, transport stream technologies, and companies that are looking to either watermark or by whatever means. We are members of the C2PA. How many of you have heard of the C2PA? I'm sure many of you have. The Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity is a BBC, Intel, Adobe venture. And right now they're spinning up an identity group at the C2PA that we're participating in. But again, it's bigger. It's a bigger problem than talent identity. I think the user identity, if it goes into whether it's that the decentralized, those things are all fine. But our world, our niche is around the notion that talent is different than user identity, because it has a qual-quant set of relationships. Thank you, Nick. Around the notability, confidence of an individual, and what makes them talented. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.